Hello and welcome to Tim's BMW repairs and information. Well, this video is a request from one of my lovely subscribers, and thanks very much for subscribing and commenting and putting the thumbs up, because it makes a huge difference to the channel. But yes, to prove the point, this is a request from one of my subscribers and it's all about the BMW keys. Now, this is my favourite era of key, this one and the diamond one, which was used in the E38 and E39. Are fantastic keys. They have 3 security devices, got the cut shaft, got remote, they've got a transponder, and it's the first immobilisation key that BMW used, and it's still my favourite, even though I've got much later keys, the ones without the shaft and all the rest of them. Yeah, they're open to all sorts of problems, they are. Whereas these ones, they're quite easy to work on, and so we're going to go through all aspects of them, how to take them apart, change the battery, program them to the car, and how to get the blooming tumbler out of the steering lock. Yeah, that's great fun, that is. But I have got a trick to show you how to get these out a lot easier and to replace them when they get stuck. How to adjust the Shiftlock cable, which also stops them turning. And yeah, a few warnings: don't force them round because it breaks the tumbler, and then you have to replace them, and then you're in a world of hurt, I'm afraid. Anyway, that's enough. Let's get on with it. Right, here we go then. Here's the 4 keys you should get with your brand new car. Of course, I've got all 4 of them, as would be expected. 2 identical remote keys, so that's got the remote function of the locks. Wallet key, and then a valet key. And these 3 keys do everything. Won't last for long. The wallet key, by the way, it's made out of plastic, and it's sure to disintegrate at some point, but it will start the car. So all 3 keys here will start the car. That one starts the car but won't let you in the boot or trunk, and it won't let you in the glove compartment. And you can see the obvious difference is these lines down those 3 keys, which is missing in that. And that's obviously designed so that if you give your car keys to your valet, he can't get in your glove box, pinch all your valuables, and he can't get in the trunk or boot either. So there you go, that's the 4 keys you should have got with your car. Now, all of these keys, including the tiny little wallet key, have transponders, and they don't work without them. And it's in transponder which is the very clever bit, and we'll go through that next. Righty-ho, well, the clever bit about these keys, and it includes this tiny little key, is the transponder. And in this little key you can actually find the transponder, you can actually see it. I'll bring it right in, but I also do a photograph of it as well so you can see it. Yeah, it's just behind this little plastic sort of see-through cover. There's a transponder in there, and it's the same for all of these keys. They've all got transponders in. And one easy thing to happen is when you take these keys apart to replace the batteries, you can lose the transponder because it's a tiny little thing. It's completely self-contained, no wires going to it, anything. It just looks like a bit of plastic with numbers on. Yeah, if you lose that, you won't be able to start your car. So anyway, so we'll look at how you start a car with the transponder. So there we've got a 3-button key, and inside it will be a transponder. Here's the ignition lock, and around the ignition lock you have a little coil of wire, and it does two things. First of all, it will apply power to the transponder. The transponder's got a little coil in it which receives the signal from this. I think it's 125 kilohertz or 125,000 cycles per second, and that it can convert into electricity, and it fires itself up. So when you put your key in the ignition, this part's got a coil on it, transmitting and receiving, and it powers up the transponder. And so key in, and as soon as you start to turn it, you'll get a message sent from the EWS, which is on top of the steering console on the E31. I can't remember where it is on the other cars. And they'll have a quick discussion about whether this key is relevant for this car. If the key is okay, it will send a code backwards and forwards. Then the EWS will send a code to the ECU, the DME, which is the car's main computer, and that will allow the starter to turn. and also the injectors and coils to fire, so that when you get to the next stage and actually get it to the bit where you start it up, it's done all this information already. And I'll tell you something quite interesting that I've read recently about this system is that if you stall the car lots of times, it could be that the key then becomes invalid. And I'll tell you why. Because here we go, the key's in, you turn it, you start the car, that signal's gone to the DME, DME's accepted it, and what it has to do next is send back another code which can then go via the EWS and regurgitate it into the key, so it knows, it rolls the code and it knows what's going to happen next time. Well, the problem is as you start it and it just stalls again, the DME is very busy and hasn't got time to send the code back again, and it allows 5 attempts at this. So key back, try again, fails to start, 5th time fails to start, 6th time nothing happens at all. Yes, unfortunately your key is now invalid, and you'll have to do the alignment between EWS and DME, which can be done in IMPA. But I thought that'd be an interesting thing anyway. Stall it 5 times and your key becomes invalid. Yeah, IMPA, as I say, can reinitialize the communication between EWS and DME so that the key is then valid again. It's called resynchronization. Also worth saying that if you try and start the car and it doesn't start, and then you just leave the key in the ignition and just leave it for a day or so, the battery goes flat, and then you don't get the rolling code going back into the key again from the EWS, from DME to EWS. You won't get the next code, and that also means that the key is now invalid, and you then have to resynchronize EWS and DME to get the key working again. So quite often see this on forums where someone's had an attempt to start and it hadn't start, and so he's got jump leads on it the next day, or he's recharged the battery and then it just doesn't do anything. Yeah, that's because the key is now invalid, the code's wrong, and you have to resynchronize between EWS and DME and your key will go again. So yeah, if you're in the situation where you leave the key in the ignition and the battery goes flat, you've got to resynchronize, and I say IMPA's great for doing that. Okay, so that's quite an interesting bit and bobs about the keys. We'll take one apart in a minute and have a look at it. One of the questions is, how can you get a new key for your car? What's the best way of going about it? Well, the proper way to go about it is to go to BMW with your VIN number and proof of ownership, and then they'll reproduce the key for you. And they'll do that up to 6 times. And after the 6th time, the car's immobilised and you have to take the car to BMW to get it all reset up again. And the reason for that is that the EWS has only got storage for 10 different keys. Now you get 4 with the car, 4 car keys, and that gives you 6 others which you can have recreated, and BMW can supply the keys. Get to a certain point, you run out of keys, and then the whole thing has to be wiped clean and start again. So yes, so yeah, there's a number of things that can go wrong, I'm afraid. Yeah, so buying a new key, the easiest way is to go to BMW to get the key. Quite expensive, and there's a trick to this as well. Go to BMW and buy the wallet key, because it's only the transponder we're interested in. And of course, when you buy a new key from BMW, it's the transponder which is the important bit, which has got the rolling codes in there and is matched to your EWS. Now, if you've got a transponder, you can build a key, and I'll show you how. But yeah, this is the cheapest key you can get, which is the wallet key, and that's the cheapest way to get a transponder. Okay, Tim, well, fat lot of good. I don't want to use a wallet key all my life. Fat lot of good that is. Easy. Buy a second-hand key. And the reason you have to buy a second-hand key is because you need the remote unit. Now, the remote is separate to the rest of the key, just a little PCB with a battery on, and that is separate to the rest of the key. So you buy a second-hand key, that gets you the remote, and then you pay £3 or $5 for an empty key that's got nothing in it at all, brand new, lovely and shiny and all the rest of it. And then all you have to do is go to the locksmiths or wherever else really that cuts keys, and yeah, get them to copy the key from your old one to your new one. So you've got your empty case, you've got your old key, you cut one so it matches the first one. So that's security feature number 1 done. So you've got the cut key in a new body. Next thing, get your second-hand key, take it apart, get the remote out, stick it in there, and then get your wallet key, cut out the transponder, stick it in the new key, new battery, stick it back together again. Now you've got a key that's exactly the same as BMW would have sold you. It's got the right key shank, it's got the right transmitter, and it's got the right transponder. Only thing you have to do now is program it to the car, and that sounds complicated, but it isn't. It's a very simple method of doing it. It doesn't need computers or anything like that. You must have heard it a thousand times, pressing down that key for a while, poking that one, and all the rest of it. We'll go through that in a minute. But yeah, that's how you get a new key. So I'll quickly go through that again. You buy 2 things from eBay. You buy a second-hand key, which will include the transponder. You buy a new key case, which includes the shaft. You buy a wallet key from BMW, because it's the cheapest way to do it. Take the transponder out of that. Take the remote out of the second-hand key. Put the transponder in here, get the key shank cut, and then you've got an identical key, apart from it has to be programmed to the car. And in fact, if you've got, I mean, this key has been sitting around in here for quite a while now. That appears flat as a pancake and won't work. And I'm going to have to program keys anyway if I want to get back in the car. So the remote keys need programming. And the programming is only for the remote part. It isn't for anything else. And the remote parts are separate. It's a completely separate system to the rest of the key. So yeah, because it's gone flat, I'm going to have to take both keys in the car and program them both at the same time. Second thing we'll look at is the tumbler for the ignition key. This is one out of one of my old cars, and it's broken, and the key would just spin in the ignition. And I'll tell you why. Rightio, let's get a key. This is the right key for this. Now, if I hold on to the tumbler, I can turn the key right round to the start position. No problems at all. And there's so many devices in there going on. I think I'll get a close-up of that at some point. But all the tumblers have got things to do in there. There's all bits that sort of pop out and stick out. And it's designed to break if you try and force it. Yeah, obviously, if someone gets the wrong key there, you would have thought be able to force it. But no, you can't, because what happens is there's a tiny little metal tang, which is here. I'll show you a photograph of that. And that locates in the steering mechanism, in the casting that this fits in. If you try and force the key, the whole thing will start spinning around. And that little tang will snap, and that'll be the end of that game. And that's what's happened to this one. And then the tumbler just spins around, does absolutely nothing at all. And then getting the lock out, again, is another good fun game. We'll have a look at that in a minute. But yes, if you try and force one of these locks, for security reasons, it'll snap the tiny little tang in here, and then the key just spins and spins, and it won't do anything. And if you've got a key that spins and spins, that's it for the tumbler, I'm afraid. You're going to have to get another one. Now, these are very robust indeed, and they've got this device here, which locks it into the steering mechanism, and it can only be retracted with the key in. So if you try to retract it with the key out, it just doesn't go down. It doesn't move an inch. Key in and it can move in. And that's another security feature, because you need the key to work to actually get the tumbler back out again. And because the tumbler then allows this, the little tang, to go down, it won't move until it's in position 2. And once it's in position 2, then it can be pushed down. Yeah, and there's a whole world of pain that goes into getting these out. This took me quite a long time to get out. They're easy to get in, but they're very hard to get out. And the plan with these things is generally to use the smallest key you've got, which is the wallet key, get it into position and then just turn it to position 2. Oh yeah, of course that's the wrong key for that. That's my key. This is an old one. So yeah, use your wallet key, get into, position 1. That allows that to go down, the holder honour to go down. And then you poke a device in here that pushes it down, and that allows then the whole tumbler to come out. But they are very clever systems. There's all sorts of things going on with bits at the top and bits at the side and this sliding bit here. They're so complicated, a bit overly complicated, because, yeah, anyway, they do their job. Anyway, we can go through removing the key from the tumbler from the ignition. And before we move on keys that go in and don't turn, which is the problem with the opposite problem. So let's get the right key again. Yeah, we'll have a quick look at keys that go in but then won't turn. That's quite often the tumbler has just failed and it needs lubricating, which of course means you have to get the tumbler out, which is a bit of a pain. But where you have them and you put the key in and it won't turn round and it won't rotate back again, even if you do manage to get the key to turn, isn't usually the tumbler at all, it's the shift lock. There's a cable that runs from the shifter up into the steering column, and it's designed so that the key can only be put in and turned when the shifter is either in neutral or in park. And it's their shift lock. It takes the place of the shift lock solenoid, and yet designed to stop the key turning until you've got it out of gear. So often it'll be a case that you put the key in, it won't turn. And if you do manage to get it to turn, it won't go back again. That is very likely to be the shift lock cable, and it just needs an adjustment. And I've got it on Meeknet how to adjust it, but it's very simple. A simple thing to do. And I think on the car that this came from, Phil's car now, that was the original problem. It wasn't the tumbler at all. I've replaced the tumbler and it fixed it fine, and I thought everything was okay. And a few weeks into the new owner's ownership, key wouldn't turn, and a bit more investigation showed that it was the shift lock cable and not the key or the tumbler at all. So yeah, reasons for key not turning: 1, tumbler worn out, can be lubricated and got going again. You just squirt WD-40 or something in the key and give it a go. If you do manage to get it to turn, then that's the time to change the tumbler, I'm afraid. And you have to get the tumbler from BMW, obviously, to match the key. No alternative to it. Don't go swapping all the ignition tumbler for someone else's ignition tumbler. You end up with keys that don't work, and then your battery goes flat and you want to get into the trunk or boot, and then the key doesn't fit and the emergency procedure doesn't fit. So no, just, it's an E31, an E39, E38, E36. They're worth a few quid. Just pay for a new tumbler, for goodness sake. And then you won't be stuck in a position where you end up with a bunch of different keys for the car and be stuck at the side of the road and not be able to get the trunk or boot open. You're being warned. Okay, so yeah, tumbler, very clever thing. Does all sorts of stuff. I think I'll put it on the bench and show you it in operation. It's just so clever. It does so many things and so many little things that stops it turning round and so on. So tumblers, yeah, they do wear out, but it's usually a Shiftlock cable and not the tumbler itself. And it's hard work getting them out unless you've got a special tool. Right, here we go. How you get the tumbler out of the lock. Yeah, this is brilliant fun, this is. And I tell you what, it's darn harder in the car as well. It's hard enough on the bench. First of all, you need the valet key or the key for the wallet. A normal remote is just too big, so I've had to take the back off this remote. Key in, turn to position 1, and that's very important. It won't do anything unless you're in position 1. Yeah, it's quite complicated, and I've done this twice now, and it doesn't get any easier, and that's mainly because I haven't got the BMW special tool. In fact, I'm going to torture myself now by having another go at it. Right, key in, and it has to go all the way in. Oh, it's just, I tell you what, sometimes it just does it straight away, because that's it. I haven't had to poke anything. It's gone in, that bit's gone down. I can pull the tumbler out, and then when I take it out, I'll spring back out again. So if I edit the tape so it looks like I did that straight away, you think, wow, that's easy. It's not. It really isn't. It really is hard work, especially when you're under the car, when you're under the steering column. And you can see I've done it again this time, and it hasn't worked. And I'm really not quite sure why it works sometimes and why it doesn't work others. Is it the exact position of the key or what? Or is it just because I haven't got a special tool in there? Yeah, I made it look so easy the first time, and this time it's not doing anything. It's got a little cam on it so that pushing this in should actually close that down. But I'm pushing it as hard as I can now, and it really isn't doing anything at all. How strange that it works really easily sometimes. Oh, there it goes. So I had it a bit of an angle that time. So there we go, pop it out. And let's pretend I've edited the tape. Key in, turn to accessory position 1. Device in, which is special BMW tool. And I'm going to do it at an angle this time. And there you go, it's as easy as that. So there you go, it's a bit of an angle like that rather than straight in. That's down, pull it out. Now if I'd done that first time, you would have been impressed. But that's at least the 10th time I've attempted it. One last time, position 1, BMW special tool rather than an old Allen key. Poke it in, bit of an angle this time. There you go, look, that just falls down. Allow you to get the tumbler out, device out, tumbler back up again. Right, flat bladed screwdriver. It's got a little indentation halfway up there that you're meant to get the screwdriver into. And then you shoot it off and you lose it forever. 2 screws. Hopefully this screwdriver fits better than the last one did. There we go. Of course, the rechargeable ones don't come apart without a fight, because the rechargeable batteries do fail after a while, and they become so that they can't accept a charge, and then you can replace the battery. But I've never had a diamond shaped key that needed that doing, so I haven't done it. But I have seen it on the forums, and it's a bit of a mess, to be honest. Rightio, so here's the insides of the key. There's the battery. If you take that out and then replace it within a minute, then the key doesn't need to be programmed. If you take longer than that, or the battery was just flat before you started, then you're going to need to program it. Now it's got 2 little tangs here that hold the battery in place. One there and one over the other side. But generally you just sort of give it a twang and slide it out, and that's as easy as that. There we go, he's out. So that key's going to need reprogramming after about a minute. Right, this section here is all the remote part. So that can all come out, if I can remember how you get it out. I think it's just sort of flopped in there. It isn't anything exciting. There we go. So there's the whole remote part. And yeah, that looks like that key's been fiddled with at some point. So yeah, there's the complete remote. That's all there is to it. So you can get that from a second-hand key. As long as you get it from the same country as you're in, then the frequency will be right. Only the frequency changes between countries. So the USA uses a different frequency than we do in the UK for radio transmission laws. Righty-ho. So next thing we'll look at is the transponder. And it lives just in here. You can see the transponder right there. Completely self-contained. There isn't any wires going to it or anything like that. That is the transponder in its entirety, and you can see it in the wallet key. Here's the wallet key, broken end on it, I'm afraid. It's been in my wallet too long, that's the trouble. And you can see the same transponder in there. So there you go, there's the same transponder in the wallet key. And it will be the same for the valet key. The valet key will have a transponder in, and of course all the remote keys will as well. Righty-ho. So, yeah, so okay, there's your transponder, and it's right near the front, so it gets right the induction coil, which is in the steering column. So it goes, where's my key? There we go. So yeah, this has a coil round it, and so it's very close to the transponder, which is right at the front of the key. So there you go. So that's your three safety things, three security things: transponder, remote device, and the shaft of the key. And that's why BMW, this series of BMW keys, were so good and secure until they moved on to, of course, the ones without the key shaft at all, and then people could copy them and run off with your car. Right, there we go then. I think I've warbled on about keys for long enough. You can find the programming instructions on MeekNet. They're very simple, and I'll put them up as I burble along a bit more. Yeah, very straightforward. You need all the keys, all the remote keys, because of course the programming in car just programs the remote part. Don't do anything to the transponder at all. Really is just for the remote part, which is why you can get a second-hand remote part and stick it in a key and it works. So yeah, very straightforward. Yeah, but I do like this series of key. My E28 had no immobiliser at all. My E32 had the System 3 immobiliser, which was an aftermarket, well, it's still a BMW part, but it was fitted after production. And it wasn't until I got my E38 that I came across these keys, and then the diamond-shaped keys after that. But I do love them because they're so simple to work with. You can change the tumblers, it doesn't kill you at the end of the day. Although it does, try your patience a bit, I'll tell you that. Yeah, and three security devices: the shaft, the transponder, the remote. Yeah, so they're very safe key. And as I say, exactly the same for the E38 and the E39, E36. Diamond keys, rechargeable, that was the only difference. These can store service information, but in the E31, that wasn't utilised. In the later E38s, it was in the diamond-shaped keys. So the transponder has got non-volatile RAM in it, and you could store a few things. That was there for quite a long time, and also key memory for where the seats were and so on. That can be stored in the transponder. And remember, it is the transponder, nothing else to do with the key stores anything, only the transponder does. So yeah, you could store your seat positions, your radio settings, and all sorts of things like that with the key. And of course, they weren't keyless ignition, which means that your car's not going to be stolen easy. And although I've told you how to change tumblers and how to get a key cut and all the rest of it, you need the original key to do it. So it's not a safety problem at all. Don't worry about that. You need all three things working. You need the remote working, you need the transponder, you need the right cut shaft on them. So there you go. Yeah, that's all about keys. Yeah, I've warbled on for about 20 minutes. That's probably quite enough for today. I'm still in the middle of respraying a wing. Yeah, it's gone very badly so far. But that'll be a video at some point in the future. Till then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.